Hello, it's James from XRobots.co.uk. It's part 39 of my Hulkbuster suit build, which is a wearable costume. Have a look in the previous parts to see me walking around in it. I have an event in October that I want to take it to, and I need it to look good for photo shoots. So I'm currently concentrating on getting all the panels onto the front. So last time I worked on a bit of the helmet, the shoulders and some other things, and before that I worked on the forearms. So this is a wooden main subframe with a 3D printed detail frame on top, and then sheet material stuck on top of that made of foam board and foam floor mats. I've weathered some of this in the past, and some of the newer parts I haven't. They're just fresh paint, but it'll all be blended in the end when I come back to detail it. And I still need to revisit those forearms. The top of this, there's some pieces missing around the chin, some fill-in sections. But before I do that, I'm going to work on the legs, where I got as far as doing the sort of upper legs and a bit of the shins, but the rest is completely blank. So let's have a look at those. Here are the legs so far. So we've got the repulsors or whatever in the knees, and we've still got frames sticking out of the bottom, and the tops of them were fairly okay at the front. There's nothing on the back. As you can see, I've painted and weathered the tops. There's still panels missing on the shins and absolutely nothing on the feet. So if you remember, I put in this mechanism, have a look back through for the knee mechanism, which actually unlocks the knee, so the suit stands up on its own and the torso is just put on the top. And if I pull one of these strings, it'll unlock the knee, so that now hinges backwards. And in the foot, there's already a flip over foot piece on the ball of the foot there on the stilt. So let's just tilt the camera forward. There's a hinge right down here which allows this to tip forwards. So basically that allows me to do some action poses and also stand on one toe, the aim being that I can heel to toe walk. And so far all of the panels fit here and the mechanism still works, and then I can lock that up by pulling the other string, which I do whilst I'm standing in the suit, and then that's locked up. So that means it can stand up and I can climb out of the suit. But we do need to preserve that toe mechanism at least, and make sure that the panels don't restrict that motion. I'm also a bit concerned that the feet are quite big and I'll trip over them, and I need to make sure I make them of materials that won't just get smashed to pieces. So what I'm going to do is make big sections out of expanded polystyrene insulation board to make the main toe pieces, and those are going to be floating on bungees, I think. We'll see how that goes, and obviously they will be coated with foam like the other parts, and then they will have rigid sections on top. I've pretty much covered that with some foam, so we've got a nice sort of toe piece that's quite robust, and that fits quite nicely in there. There will of course be rigid panels to cover the big hole in the top and the other seam lines, but that's pretty much the structure, and that thing's going to flex around in there so it doesn't get stuck and doesn't get snapped off. So there'll be some more foam mounts and a bit of bungee holding it on. And of course the toe of Hulkbuster is actually quite narrow, and it's got some extra bits stuck on the side which will come along later. The most time-consuming thing about doing arms and legs is you have to do everything twice. So that just about fits there, with the whole leg leaning forward onto its toe, and that bit of foam just fits quite well underneath. So there we go, that's all the major bits of foam on, including those side parts that you can see just there. So we've got quite a few more bits to do, but first of all I'm going to get the rigid panels on this, and then we'll put some 3D printed greeblies and things on, and then we'll come back and put the pieces on the sides of the feet. Here is the side shot of one foot, which looks a bit weird at the moment, although it's quite in proportion size-wise. Obviously we need those side bits and a big heel at some point when I do the back. At the moment it looks a bit like a horse's hoof. The next stage of this, as before, is to get foil and pin it all over the bits of suit that need foam PVC board put on them. And the reason for that is that foil can be scrunched and made to go around contours, so that we can try and work out what those panels look like, and then we can cut those out of foam PVC board, heat them with a hot air gun and bend them to the same contours, then obviously paint them up and stick them on. So I shall continue to work on the rest of that foot and the bit of shin. Spent quite a long time getting all these foil panels done, which are my panel layouts for the foam board. Obviously I've got parts on that side as well. And I need to make all of these twice, once in a mirror for the other leg. So these all need to be cut out of foam PVC board and then heated with a hot air gun and shaped back onto each leg. There's quite a few large panels to do, so that's going to be quite time consuming. So a few days later, here are some of the parts. So that is all of the red parts for both legs. There's one of them over there, which I've made from the foil you can just see in the distance. There's probably more parts than I've put onto any of the parts in the recent episodes. And I've still got some more to make. Alright, so I've got some of those parts stuck on the leg you can see on the left there. And I'm just going to continue to stick the parts on the other foot here. So we've got this piece, which of course goes here. So I'm just using hot glue as I was with all the parts. Just get that stuck on. Here is the current state with those parts on both legs. Obviously they will be eventually weathered in, although some of them parts are a bit scratched actually from constantly moving around the room. But I'm pretty happy with the contours. Obviously those extra pieces need to be stuck on eventually. My main intention for the last two episodes in this episode was to get the panels on the front of the suit so that it's presentable for Nerdageddon DEFCON 4, which is on the 10th and 11th of October in Southampton in the UK, and I'll put the link to that event in the description to this video if you happen to be able to make it and you can see the suit in real life. So I've actually achieved putting those panels on the legs, so this video is going to end here, but then I'm going to revisit all those parts again and go around and detail them up. So next time I'm going back to do the helmet and the shoulders, do those missing parts, hopefully sort out some of the electronics and mechanisms. I'll probably weather in the forearms as well as the helmet and the shoulders. And then the episode after that I'll be revisiting the legs and the feet again to get those missing side pieces on. Some of the other detail, I think I want to put lighting in there and lots of 3D printed detail, but I don't want to rush into it, so I'm going to mull it over and then come back to that in the episode after next. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more updates on this project and other projects. Lots of 3D printing and lots of other exciting stuff coming up.